Hey everyone, this is Thick Immortal MGTOW, and this is the launch video for my channel titled Men Are Back, with a subtitle of Start a Legal Fund. And the reason I have that subtitle, it's a curious one, is that men are back. And the sooner we understand that we want to reassert ourselves in society, we have to understand that a great deal of that is going to take place in the courts. That means reforming the current court situation, understanding that situation, and I'm going to give you my interpretation. I am not a lawyer. I am, quoting from other researchers on similar topics. So it is not firsthand information that I'm stating here. It's my perception of the courts, how they work, and how we can possibly change things. So I've had direct experience in dealing with the courts and women in family court. I was successful. It was painful. It was expensive. It was drawn out. It took forever. It took multiple years for my rights to be supported, reasserted, defended, and in the face of a female who was doing harm to our child, myself, herself even. Honestly, again, this is my opinion. There's a lot of mental health issues going on there. But the one thing I wanted to bring up in regards to men and MGTOW is it is a battle. It is a cultural battle, and those can be some of the ugliest battles in history. Most of the really ugly battles are cultural ones. So in this cultural battle where men are... See, the thing of it is that the way I feel, and the very simplest analysis is, the way I feel is, when you go into court with a female, first of all, generally, typically, the court assumes that you're incompetent, whether you're a man or a woman. And what we're facing right now is that same concept, is that the courts may find you, the male, as more competent than the female. Thus, you are the one where you hold the responsibility even after you've extricated yourself from the relationship. And whether or not you're a good parent or not, etc., etc. They're basically treating the female, and again, this is where you don't hear the equality arguments from feminism in terms of we want to make things equal for everyone in the courts. They know the courts are in their favor because they're relying on a Victorian attitude in the courts. Again, the court system is based on British maritime law. If you didn't already know, like I live in, forget where I live. I live in Florida, and the Florida Bar Association certifies lawyers can practice, but Bar Association Bar is British accredited registry. So every lawyer on the planet that practices British maritime law, including the United States, Canada, Australia, and quite a few others, are registered in London, the City of London. So the British Accredited Registry is the laws that we're dealing with. Black's Law. If you go get the Black's Law dictionary, you look up some of this stuff, and there are 12 points, 10 or 12 points in which the court finds you incompetent, mentally incompetent, educationally incompetent, whatever it is. The court, you walk into court, that's why you have to have an attorney. You don't have to, but you have to prove to the court first that you're even competent. So when the court looks at competency, they're still looking at the Victorian British maritime law, that you're a man, you're the competent one, or you're not a competent in the eyes of the court per se, but you're the more competent party. So, and women are benefiting from that Victorian double standard. So there is no huge cry or outcry from feminism to equal treatment under the law. Because women are not treated equally under the law. They are not in sentencing, because they're not held to the same competency as a man. That is the key, is that the true sexism in the court system is that they don't see women as competent as men. So they give them extremely light sentences for crimes like murder in comparison to men. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, I've seen women get probation for killing a man. I've seen women get 1 year in prison for killing someone, killing children. It comes down to competency. And if you notice, the lawyers go right for the emotional competency plea. She was temporary insanity, or she had a history of mental illness or emotional disturbances. And these kind of things that are used to say this person wasn't competent at the time of the crime. That is essentially what we're talking about, is competency. And the courts move very slowly in terms of their application of things. So whether it's good or it's bad, it has its benefits that they move slowly because there's more of a consistency. But that consistency, when it's incorrect or reflects incorrectly on competency, is terrible. Is terrible. And reform is slow. So we have to understand that as MGTOW, if you want egalitarianism, or if you just want your rights to be balanced, that's all I wanted. And I fought many years, I wouldn't say many, I would say a few years in the courts, just to have my rights in place. I mean, it was just one of those things where it's like, hey, I'm going to have to fight this out just to be recognized as a parent. So you gotta consider that you're going to have to establish, and really it was a matter of in my particular case was establishing the fact that the other person in the case was violating my rights and violating the child's rights. It really came down to the child and the harm that was being done to the child. So think on that. It wasn't about that I had rights. That there was an issue there. I mean, it certainly was an issue, and my rights were reinforced, and it was a positive outcome for me, which is rare in family court. But if she wasn't so terrible, I wouldn't have had a chance. I mean, she had to be awful, and she was. She was terrible to deal with, and you know, despite that win, there's still issues. But think about competency in the court system and balancing the competency perception. So you have to, and the reason I say start a legal fund, whether you sock away, and it's a good thing, you're saving money. As a MGTOW, you should be accumulating wealth, saving money, great. But keep in mind that there may come a time where you're going to have to fight for your rights, or you're going to have to fight for just to be treated as a decent citizen, because the courts look at men as higher competency, also higher culpability. So you're going to get the harder sentence. You're going to get punitive suits and or terrible child support and or custody decisions. You're going to, again, and in terms of children and raising children, women are considered higher competency in that realm. Okay? They are considered, and that, again, it's Victorian is the attitude. But the courts are still in that Victorian mode for the most part. There are exceptions. I ran into an exception, had an excellent judge who was really weighed the issues and really focused on the benefit to the child, which is honestly where most of that belongs, and reinforced my rights as a parent. So did the right thing there. But unfortunately, that is the exception to the rule. So men are back. Men are back. MGTOW is basically stating that men are back, and that feminism has, and you know, some people would disagree with this on a MGTOW channel. Feminism has its, it was an inevitability. Again, it's one of those social forces that was encouraged by by political elements and other things. It even has roots into socialism and communism. It is a political movement. It is a political movement that mitigates men. I mean, from way back in the day, the Roman Empire, etc., you know, it was known that you can manipulate men through the females, and manipulate society, okay, and manipulate society. You know, again, as MGTOW, we need to educate ourselves about those forces and be prepared to push them back. That is what men do. Men take action, but it should be balanced action. It should be carefully strategized and then swift action. That was the motto of Napoleon. Careful planning followed by swift action. Because that is both sides of the coin, and that's why he was ridiculously successful for the majority of career. They focus on his failure, and even his failure when he stepped back on the soil after being exiled to Corsica, he still was able to resume himself as emperor for a short period of time until he was removed. But I mean, he was ridiculously successful as a general. He was feared. He was the most successful general of his age. He was likened to Alexander the Great. And his motto was careful planning followed by swift action. Because you either don't plan enough and take too precipitous action and harm yourself and get your troops killed, or you plan so heavily like McClellan in the Civil War. He was a planner, he was a logistics master, but he could never he'd move troops around, reposition things, reposition supplies. He would deploy, you know, food and medicine and weaponry and all this stuff, and he would spend his time doing the logistics of war, but he just would not commit soldiers to battle, which is what you have to do to win wars. And what Lincoln said about Grant is, Grant wasn't a strategist. He just gathered his troops, pointed them south, and said, "Let's go." And he, you know, he was a brutal general. But what he did was he knew whether you plan well or you don't plan well, you have to go out there. And now that resulted in a great many more casualties. So, and again, so you have to balance those things out, where you balance your planning with your action. And swift action is what takes people by surprise and allows you to have the maximum amount of gain. Then you return back to your planning mode and then consolidate your wins and then strike again. And in that way, we will win. In that way, we will win. And we're going to win, but the key thing that I'm concerned about is, as men, you have to understand that there is a bias in the courts, there is a bias in the law, and we have to take a page from the playbook of feminism and be prepared to fight it in court. Understand that the court will see you as incompetent or will place competency where it wants. The key to winning is placing incompetency in the particular case of the female, and placing competency on yourself in the appropriate areas. And a lot of time the court doesn't want to hear that. A lot of times the court sees its role as assigning competency to a party or another based on the Victorian or the established norms or whatever it is, via case precedent. That's why they're big on precedent, because they want to be able to fall back on precedent when they assign competency. Because if they assign competency incorrectly, they're going to be held accountable via appeal and what have you. You can hold them, and be prepared to appeal, gentlemen. Be prepared to appeal. In my particular area, men were always awarded 1 day a week, every other weekend for custody up until the year of 2006. I want you to think about that. We practically have George Jetson out here with phones that are, you're holding a communicator that Captain Kirk would have been dreaming about. And, you know, I mean, even with the trickle-down technology that we get, it's George Jetson, okay? So, and men in my county, up until 2006, were still getting every other weekend, 1 day a week. Doesn't matter how bad mom is, doesn't matter, mom's alcoholic, she got a parade of men rolling through that house, she spends all of your money on her hair, all of your child support money on hair. You know, it's just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's what you got. That's what you got. And one father got that decision. The mother was completely terrible. She was abusive to the child, abusive to him, refused to co-parent, was just a ridiculous piece of garbage. And he took it to appeal. How expensive is that? I can guarantee he spent anywhere between $20,000 and $50,000 to achieve that goal. At the very least, 20 grand. He spent $20,000 to achieve that goal. He went to appeal court, he proved that she was garbage, and he won his custody. Okay, he even did better than he would have done in the lower court. But he won it in appellate court, and it changed the law. It changed the law for every punk that walks in there that wants a decent custody arrangement with their child. And now the default is 50-50. That is now the default. No child support, 50-50. And that's it. And that's where it should be nationwide in all cases. And if the mom can be proved to be garbage, hurtful, harmful, refuse to co-parent, use the kid like a body shield, then primary custody should be dad. More and more research shows that as the child gets out of the baby stages, dad is the more important parent. I'll come out and say that I think as a child, as an infant, up until maybe 5, needs mom more than dad. I would say so, unless the mom is completely incompetent. There's something about the baby and the mother that's sacrosanct that I don't think anybody wants to touch or mess with. Okay? Unless she's shooting meth into her eyeballs, freebasing cocaine, it's like, okay. You know, after 5 years old though, 5 to 15, dad is I believe is the more formative parent. Dad teaches you strength. Dad teaches you confidence. Dad teaches how to dust yourself off and stand back up again. Dad teaches you not to sweat the small stuff. Dad teaches you how to get along in tough environments. Whether it's a boy or a girl, dad is the key player. And in fact, as a female, because dads, guess what? If you're worried about talking to your daughters about her menstrual cycle or sex or any of that stuff, guess what? Go to Barnes & Noble and buy yourself a book, and there's books out there that go, I'm a girl, this is my period, how does this work, and all this stuff. You don't even have to, again, sit down with them and go over it, but just say, hey, this is all the information you need, honey. If you have any questions about it, you come and talk to me. And we'll research it, or we'll talk to somebody, or I'll tell you what I think, or whatever. Guess what, dads? You can be a parent to your girl, your son, your daughter, whatever. You can be an excellent parent. It's really up to you. So I don't want to get this too long, but this is my opening MGTOW video. I've been inspired by Sandman, Turf Flinging Monkey, Angry MGTOW, An Ear for Men, Howard Dare, and many other MGTOW that are out there. And they always, MGTOW is Freedom. MGTOW is Freedom with Big John. He's just kind of an approachable guy. He kind of inspired me to do this channel. Because I just want to I think the more of us begin expressing ourselves, it becomes a movement, and it becomes a voting bloc, and it becomes a legislative bloc, and it becomes an organization that can generate a fund to help fight in the courts. That's where it really happens, people. That's where the change really happens. That's where the rubber meets the road. If every dad, decent dad, and I'm not saying you're super dad, I'm just saying you work a job, you don't beat your kids, you get them food and clothes when they need it. You know, again, you don't got to be sitting there playing Littlest Pet Shop or whatever, you know, be a man, be yourself, whatever, be the dad, be present. As long as you're present, that's the key. Don't run. Don't be scared of the mom if she's nasty. Even if the mom is torturing the kids, document that shit and take her to court. Oh, that's a lot of money. I don't want to spend the money. Spend the money. There's no, see, and that's the other thing, guys. Prioritize that money. Set aside money. Have a legal fund. Be ready to fight. And if every woman in this country knows that she's got an 80% chance of being pulled into court, and we're going to shine a light on some of your stupid behavior, guess what? Stuff's going to start changing. Stuff's going to start changing. It happened to me. She never thought she was going to be pulled into court and have that exposed, have some of her behavior exposed in front of people, professional people that look at her like, really? I mean, that's what I'm talking about when the power of the court. Even if you don't win, pull her in, document it, charge her that. She's got to pay for a lawyer. She got to pay to get there. She got to do all that stuff. You inconvenience her like she inconveniences you. And even if you lose, even if you don't gain anything, you have pushed that behavior back a little bit. She's going to behave herself during that court case. And they take forever. They're long and drawn out. One of the big reasons that I petitioned the court was because my kid was being harmed, and there was little to nothing I could do about it. So, guess what? Here we go. You want to go down that road? Let's go. I will spend that money and smile, because that is going to at least relieve some of the stress and some of the harm on my child. And that's what I'm supposed to be doing, defending my child, but not doing it stupidly, not doing it legally, not compromising my parental rights, highlighting, documenting, using the logic and discipline that is our birthright as men to facilitate change or to protect our children. Bottom line. Get that legal fund ready. Be ready to spend the money. They don't want a light shined on their behavior in front of professionals that see child abuse every single day. They don't want that. And if they know that you're prepared to do it, if they know that you're ready to go, fine. That's fine. Because she never believed I'd petition the court. I told her I would. She never believed it. Kept doing her stupid behavior. Kept harming me and kept harming the child. And I said, guess what? Here is your petition. Boom. Never thought it would go the distance. Never thought I'd keep it up to the end of the case. Never thought. And guess what? I did. Tried to manipulate me into, violating custody agreements. Tried to trick me into physical altercations with, her father, her boyfriend, and all the rest of it. Fail. Tried to paint me in a bad light. Fail. Tried to get people to talk badly about me. Fail. Okay? Didn't believe that I would ever get a decision that was to the benefit of the child. I got the decision. She failed. Think about it. Fight. And I fought not assuming I would not succeed. It didn't matter to me. It was the fight for my rights and the benefit of and the health and the wellness of my child. That is what motivated me. That is what motivated me. It didn't matter whether I won or not. And guess what? If I had not a won, next year, boom, back to court. And I'll keep you locked up in there until the kid's 18 if that helps keep her safe or reduces the amount of harm that's being done to that child. If that's what I had to do, that's what I will do. Full commitment. Full commitment. That's what they're not ready for, gentlemen. That's what they're not ready for. And if we really want, if quote unquote, feminism really wants egalitarianism, well then guess what? Let's really have it then. Let's really have it then. Because the bias is in their favor. We all know it. We need to change it. Be prepared with a legal fund. I think I beat this to death. This is Thick Immortal MGTOW. The first video, the start of a whole new thing.